Hello everyone, it's Davide here and welcome back to Learning Finance. In today's video guys, I want to do an update on Palantir stock, Palantir technology, ticker symbol PLTR, which obviously if you follow the channel you know that is a stock that I own. During those days, obviously I've done further research and I played a lot with the numbers, okay, you know that I like to play with the numbers. So in today's video, I want to actually show you the effect of scalability in Palantir, why scalability is important. Let's take a look at the numbers. As always, guys, the only thing I ask you is an early like, so you help me to reach more people and grow the channel. Now, thank you for it, and subscribe to the channel if you want so you don't miss any new updates. Let's begin. Alright guys, so first of all, I want to show you actually, this is an article from Seeking Alpha by Business Quant, interesting article. One of those articles with a lot of statistical numbers and stuff, but I like these kind of things. But anyway, what's the important part? The important part is that the guy over there goes on and analyzes the 13F filing from Q1 2021. Institutional ownership is now at 17%. This is increasing. So what that means is that then it goes on and checks different increased position, decreased positions. Obviously the net is positive, okay, meaning that they bought more shares than the one they sold. The important stuff is that as Palantir price came down, so the huge pullback 50% from the highs, well, institutionals actually started to buy more. Now, my guess is that this is from Q1, but in Q2 is where, in my opinion, the price really became interesting. If you follow the channel, you know that I have been talking about buying Palantir below 20 for basically months now. And so, well, I guess that the 13F for the second quarter, that kind of number, I think is gonna go up even more, probably, very likely. Now, another thing that I saw lots of people actually being scared of, and that's absolutely normal because especially as media tells us those things, it's not easy. The first reaction that we have is being worried about the thing is that Alex Karp sold shares and especially exercising options. That's the main thing. Now, I was not worried. Why? Well, because Alex Karp has a lot of shares, more than 81 million shares into Palantir. However, the full explanation of it, so why actually Alex Karp did those kind of things, I think that if you really want to go on and understand the technicalities of it, check the Tom Nash's video that he did yesterday. I think it was very interesting. He talks about the technicalities of it due also to taxation issues, and he puts out some numbers, great explanation. I really learned something that I didn't know. That's the beauty of YouTube, okay? There are thousands of stupid, silly channels out there. You know that if you follow my channel, it's like I have always tried to do a war against those silly content channels that basically they do it just for the views. But when you find those few channels that actually they make sense, they tell you the things with the numbers, well, that's value added. Now, let's talk about, first of all, the valuation. So what I have been doing during those days, playing a bit with the numbers. I went again through the earnings. That's something that I usually do. I made the video, commercial opportunities in the US and the UK have increased by 2.5x. That, in terms of pilots, okay, pilots are the first part of their business plan. So acquire, expand, scale. In the acquire part, they have pilots. Well, basically that means that by giving the pilots the likelihood actually to get those kind of customers also in the expand and scale phase has increased in the commercial part. So that's something I like. I want to see the commercial side increase in terms of overall percentage compared to the government side. Now, why is that something that I wanted to actually go on and see some more numbers? Because if you remember, that was the first model that I did months ago about Palantir, trying to understand the evaluation of a company that actually is not easy to really understand 100%, simply because, first of all, no one has actually an idea on the TAM. That's the first issue with Palantir. But I went on and tried to do a model with the total customers, so that actually is the total contracts and customers that they have. That number was 139 in December 2020, and then you can find the average revenue per customer, which in December was 7.9 million. Now, from the new earnings, what we get is that the company said average revenue per customer grew to 8.1 million. Palantir has now 149 customers. So if we go back to actually see the model I did back then, I basically put for 2021 customers of 147. Now, the thing is that instead of 8.1 million, I put that at the end of 2021, the average revenue will be 10.20, okay? An increase of 30% from previous year. Now, why I did that? And here is also the effect of scalability. Now, first of all, I did this kind of model because, simple enough, Palantir's business plan. They are a business-to-business software data analytics. The idea is that for their kind of business plan, how it's structured, they will have a few customers with a huge value in terms of contracts. Okay, so it's not like Microsoft, where basically they released the Microsoft Office pack. And those packs, depending on which one you buy, they have a cost which is below $1,000 most of the times, okay? But they sell millions of those things. So that's how they generate billions. Now, for a company like Palantir, their business is a bit different. They work with enterprises, so they will have fewer contracts, but with a huge value per contract. Basically, the point is that by 2030, Palantir would have had 270 customers and the average revenue per customer of 76.5 million. Now that's huge, but the idea was that Palantir is gonna work with big enterprises. If you are an enterprise that makes billions, spending actually 100 million on something that can save you 200 million in costs, well, guess what? You're gonna do it. Okay, so that was the point. But according to the numbers that I'm seeing right now, it looks like that Palantir is growing customers at a higher pace and the average revenue per customer is lower. Now, is that bad? Is that good? Well, in my opinion, if they do it consistently, that's good. I'm gonna show you just what I mean by that. Now, with this valuation, if you remember, we had a total revenue of around 20.6 billion by 2030. And then obviously price to sales ratio. So I gave you a 8 and a 10, which is the average industry. Obviously by 2030, you are looking at a company which is more mature. Okay, so also in terms of multiples, you are coming down from higher multiples right now. But that will give an average of $200 billion company. I have added the 12 price to sales ratio. Why 12? Well, simple enough. Microsoft right now is trading at 11.8. Okay, so just to have an idea. Anyway, that would be almost a 6x return on the market cap. Those are the prices, okay, by including a share dilution of 2% per year. Price 1, $79 with a price to sales ratio of 8, and then moving to 12, $118 in 2030. And then the free cash flow margin. This is something that I have added. Palantir showed an adjusted free cash flow for Q1 of 44%. Now, that's huge. I think that is gonna go down coming in next quarters because they told that this is the result of a higher than expected billings value, okay? But anyway, I think that by 2030, they can achieve a 25% free cash flow margin at least, with a free cash flow yield of around 3%, which, by the way, If we take a look at the average for the industry, we are at around 2, okay? So 2.4 is still less than what the average is for this kind of industry. But even with the free cash flow, it gives us a valuation of around 171.8 billion by 2030. But this is with this kind of idea of a model that actually makes few customers with a huge value. Now, let me show you the effect of scaling the business. And that's why I told you many times it is important for Palantir. It will be the key to really growing. Now, first of all, what scaling means for Palantir? Well, in my opinion, increasing the customers, the number of customers in percentage higher than the percentage of the costs that they will need to increase the business in order to fulfill that demand. Now, what I mean by that, let's say that you want to increase the customers by 10%. If you have to increase your costs by 10%, so hiring new engineers, spending more, and actually spending 10% more of the time of our employees inside the customer's facilities, then that doesn't mean to scale. What means to scale? Well, you want to increase 10% the customers, let's just increase 2% our costs, okay? So reaching more people by spending less. That's scalability, and that's the powerful tool that if Palantir uses that, then we can really have fun with this company. Now, let me just show you. So remember those numbers, 2030, 270 customers. This is the original model I did. Now, let's move lower and let's see the first different example, scalability. Remember that from 2021, in Q1, they said 149 customers. So in the previous model, I was already short, but they gave a lower average revenue per customer. Now, why is that interesting? Because that's a first sign of possible scalability for Palantir. So now let's suppose that they are able to increase the customers at a higher pace. So you see how here is moving higher by 2025, 2026. Now, this is not random. That makes sense if you believe that Palantir moving forward will continue to find ways to make last the acquire and expand phases less and less. If you have seen the demo day, lots of people were frustrated by it. They don't say nothing in that. It's difficult to understand, but I told you, I made a video and I told you that in my opinion, there was an extremely important piece in that video where the guy, I don't remember the name, but actually it was talking about the fact that now they are able to implement those data in their platform in just a couple of weeks. It was talking about that in the demo day, compared to years ago when that kind of process would take months. Okay, so that moving forward, if they're able to drop the couple of weeks to, I don't know, 10 days, 8 days, 7 days, you understand the idea, okay, behind that and the power of it. Just let's take a look at the numbers. Here, in that case, we will reach 543 customers by 2030, which is almost the double. Then obviously the average revenue per customer has to go down a bit. Why is that? Well, simple enough. I told you, you are reducing the costs that it takes you to do that. And if you are able to scale, it means that you're going to reach not only the huge businesses, billionaire businesses, but also, let's say, smaller enterprises. And here is where, in my opinion, the huge money will come, is the jackpot for Palantir. Being able to reach smaller companies, but a lot of them, okay, with their products. Because let's face it, everyone has these data issues, not only the big guys out there, but also smaller businesses. They have the same problem too. So we arrive at 2030 with a 44.5 million average value per customer. Right now they told us 8.1, but you see the total revenue before we had 20.6 billion. Now we are already at 24. So reducing the average revenue per customer growth, but increasing the amount of customers that you reach. That's scalability. By doing that, look at the prices that we get now. The same price to sales from 8 to 12, those were the prices before, and those are the prices right now. So that's powerful, but let's say that they scale even more. Total customers, now we are at 1,000 basically by 2030. And obviously, the average revenue is going down. So they reach smaller firms, 27.7 million average revenue per customer. We are now at 28.8 billion in revenue. And obviously, we go on valuations and look at the power of scalability on future valuations. Okay, so that's why I told you scalability is the key for Palantir. Let's see another extreme scenario. By 2030, 1,800 basically customers, and to push the average revenue per customer to 18.5 million. That would give a 34.1 billion in revenue. And obviously, we go on, same price to sales ratio, 8, 10, 12. That's what we have. In the 12 scenario, we are at 400 billion market cap. So that's a 10x from where basically the stock is today. So you understand why I told you many times that scalability for Palantir is the key. As of now, they have always worked with those very few contracts, few customers, but huge amount of money in terms of value. If they will be able to increase the enterprise business to reach smaller firms, that's where the game will be interesting, in my opinion. That's where the jackpot is for Palantir. If they will be able to improve and reduce the acquire and expand phase by scaling, reducing times, reducing the amount of engineers that they need to be employed at customers' facilities, you get the idea. Okay, so that's what scalability does. Moving forward, you want to take a look at this number. This will be one of the most important numbers that you want to take a look at in earnings. So that total amount of customers and that the average revenue per customers, those will be key numbers moving forward. Now, just briefly, if we take a look at the graph, we see that Palantir in terms of price action today is trying to break the resistance over there, the green bar, famous green bar. Now, clearly, guys, in terms of pure price action, that part, that area over there will be kind of difficult to pass in the first place. Okay, so we might have a little bit of rejection, and we are already seeing today. Okay, so look at this shadow. That's perfectly fine if the stock move back down, take a breath, and then possibly break this downtrend moving forward. That's perfectly fine. I will obviously keep an eye on the stock in the next few days, and if we get this kind of rejection a bit from that level, I will very likely buy and add some more shares. Okay, so well, I hope you find the video interesting, guys, and leave me a comment down below. Tell me, what do you think? Will Palantir scale their business? Subscribe to the channel, guys, if you want. And as always, have a wonderful day.